So before we go any further tonight, we're going to show a brief video of someone that was incredibly special to most of the people in this room. For a good part of the last 20 years, this individual has made events like this happen and happen regularly. Excuse me, can I have your attention, please? Yet she never sought any spotlight or recognition for her work. Rita O'Hare was many things to many people. Outside of her family, many know only the side of her that she wanted you to know. All I know is that once you met her, you knew she was special. Then when you got to know her, you were certain of it. She was one of the most unique, honest, and sincere people one could ever meet. She had one singular purpose: right any injustice she saw. Rita could be very easygoing and accepting in mixed company, but yet step out of line or say something wrong, and Rita could pivot on a dime. She didn't care where she was, who was there, or what people would think of her afterwards. She would not tolerate ignorance or intolerance. She was a true champion of civil rights. Yet not even that made her the special person she was. What made her special was that it was never about Rita. Rita loved her family and the innocence of children. She loved Ireland. She loved anyone who said they didn't understand something but was willing to listen and learn. And if they had the time, they could get a lifetime's education on just about any subject. Her instincts were unmatched. In everyone's life, if they are lucky, they get to meet that person that was transformative. To say Rita was that person would be an understatement. She truly was an incredible, special, unique individual. For many years, Rita was on the run and later spent a lot of time in the U.S. as a Sinn Féin representative. As the daughter, son, grandchild, great-grandchild, or husband, I'm certain there was a sense that she spends more time with them than us. But what she was doing was working to make sure that her family could live in a fair and prosperous Ireland for all the people of Ireland. Rita had one mission in life: to make the world a better place if she could, and she did. I'm sure there are those that would take issue with her, but no one could ever question Rita's integrity. I hope the president doesn't mind, but I would like to steal a line that he used when he gave Martin McGuinness's eulogy. She lived a life of radical commitment. She believed in the power of peace, in the power of love, and she lived it every day. She fought, she made peace, she made politics, and she made history. She would have loved to have been here to see everyone this evening. This is the network that Rita built. This is her legacy. Can we show the video?
We loved Rita. We loved Rita for who she was, for the life she led, for the example she set, for the inspiration she gave us, for all the burdens she bore, and for all the challenges she overcame. We loved her for the hard roads she traveled to keep alive the dream of the Republic, the vision to which she dedicated her beautiful life, her life of resilience and hope. Perhaps her greatest strength was her ability not only to make friendships, but to keep them too. This was most evident in her success as Sinn Féin's representative to the United States, particularly during the peace process and in the time leading up to the historic Good Friday Agreement. In America, in those pivotal times, she knocked on every door, left no stone unturned. She was relentless because she believed that peace could lead us to a new united Ireland, because she believed in the leadership of Gerry and Martin McGuinness, because she believed in the capacity of the Irish people to see beyond the trenches of the past, to seize the opportunity to build a better future. Rita would have given anything to see the day when we end partition. Now she relies on us to carry on, to grasp the moment, to to seize the purpose of a generation, to make it happen. We will move heaven and earth to finish that noble journey. I want you to know that we've got this, Rita. We will not let you down. Until we meet again, sleep well, our leader, our comrade, our dearest friend.
All right, so now we're going to move into the second part of our program. Gerry Adams is going to co-chair with Congressman Richie Neal. Richie Neal was born in Worcester, Massachusetts, and raised and educated in the city of Springfield. Congressman Richie Neal was first elected to the House of Representatives in 1988. Over the course of his political career, he ascended to the chairmanship of the House Ways and Means Committee, where he has been a champion for the middle class. Congressman Neal played a critical role in navigating the U.S. through one of the most economically tumultuous times in recent history. Through his efforts as chairman of Ways and Means and the House of Representatives leadership, he helped usher in the CARES Act. Additionally, he spearheaded a number of other historic legislative achievements, including the American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the CHIPS Act, Secure 2.0, and the Inflation Reduction Acts. He's also the co-chair of the Friends of Ireland Caucus, where he's advocated for maintaining strong relations between the U.S. and Ireland. As we approach the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement, we are reminded of his role, not only in bringing the accord to fruition, ending the longest period of conflict in Irish history, but also in upholding the principles of the agreement and ensuring no return to the hard border. Please welcome Congressman Richie Neal.
Thank you.
Now let me introduce our sponsors this evening and the leaders of these organizations. On the far end, from the Ancient Order of Hibernians, Sean Pender. Next to him, the president of New York City Brehons, Domhnall O'Connell. Next to him is the president of Nassau County Brehons, Cathy Stanton. On the other side of Gerry Adams, we have Friends of Sinn Féin, U.S. Representative Mark Guilfoyle. The ladies, Ancient Order of Hibernians, Marilyn, Madigan. The James Connolly Irish American Labor Coalition, Deirdre, Feerick. And right next to me, the president of Friendly Sons of St. Patrick, Long Island, William McDermott. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to our chairman for this evening.
Well, thanks for this prestigious forum. And as I was watching the tribute to Rita, one of the things that occurred to me was nobody ever spent 5 minutes with Rita and walked away saying Rita's undecided. Again, thanks for this prestigious forum, and thanks to Bill Clinton and Gerry Adams tonight and the Reflecting Society. Really, we need to remind ourselves on occasions like this that before the Good Friday Agreement, and I started with the hunger strikers. Gerry's heard me tell him this before. There used to be a gathering at the John Boyle O'Reilly Club on Easter Sunday evening, and it was always to commemorate what was really then the Kerry Brigade from Springfield. And I listened to those speeches from the men at the time, I would say, who actually participated in the rising. And I think that it motivated me, and the amount of attention that was drawn in America to the way that the hunger strikers were treated upon death, it galvanized Irish American opinion. And I remember just as a young member of the Springfield City Council speaking out about what was happening. And then I watched this succession of events that brought about the Good Friday Agreement and the risk-taking that accompanied it. But something I think we need to remind ourselves of with a very nice forum like this is that before the Good Friday Agreement, there were 30,000 British soldiers in an area the size of the state of Connecticut. There were 106 military installations. And before, even as a member of Congress, you tried to move around, you were met by helicopters and street sweepers and British paramilitaries. And in 1989, to show you just how difficult the terrain was, I was on a bus with then Speaker of the House, Tom Foley, and a congressional delegation, and we were passing from Donegal to Derry. And at the border then, the bus was stopped with the Speaker of the House of Representatives, searched by British soldiers in full night gear and heavily militarized, and they went through the whole bus while we sat there as members of Congress. And today, when you go from Donegal to Derry, your phone pings. I mean, that's the success of what really happened. I was with Rich McCauley and I was reminded that, I was reminding Rich McCauley that when I went to the North to meet Gerry Adams, which the Massachusetts delegation enthusiastically signed the petition for him to be receiving the visa that Bill Clinton granted, and also to understand that I did Newsnight that night. Bill Clinton's, the administration said, would you defend the administration on Newsnight? And I must tell you that I never received uglier mail for anything that I'd ever done for defending that visa, but my God, did it pay a huge dividend. And then when Gerry Adams came to the United States right after that, he landed in Boston and he drove to Springfield. And I must tell you, he got a pretty raucous reception. You have faced tougher crowds during your career. And I call attention to these many events because I think that the attitude from the British government became sort of cavalier about the Good Friday Agreement. Oh, it just happened. When some of the hardest men and women who had given loved ones, lost limbs and all, found common accord on proceeding with the Good Friday Agreement. Even now, when Speaker Pelosi and myself and Joe Biden said, if there is any threat returning a hard border, there could be no trade agreement with the United Kingdom. And I think these are the kinds of issues that are going to be on my mind as we reach the moment of celebration. But Michelle O'Neill said something recently, because the Friends of Ireland, it's always been a bipartisan caucus, Democrats and Republicans, Mike Kelly, Peter King, and of course, a reminder that that bipartisanship with Jimmy Walsh and others, we always made sure that we kept it that way. We might have differences of opinion on other items and issues before the Congress, but not on Ireland. We were steadfast. And the last point I want to make before we take some of the questions, American foreign policy is always the manifestation of domestic policy. You have a chance to petition your government. You have a chance to influence foreign policy in America. As Bill Clinton said tonight, I mean, I always used to laugh with him. I used to say, we get this Baptist from Hope, Arkansas. He's invited to New York, and the next thing you know, he's a champion. But it was that influence that was drawn in get-togethers like the one in New York and Springfield and Boston and places like that to influence American opinion. And we witnessed the collapse of the Soviet Union, majoritarian government coming to South Africa, the yoke of Marxism being lifted from the necks of the people of Eastern Europe. And then people logically started to think, what about the north of Ireland? And people like Gerry and Martin and Dr. Paisley as well made the right decision at the big moment, but without the nudging of all of you in this audience. It pushed and pushed with the State Department. And I was with Nancy Soderberg tonight as a great friend. I reminded people, do you know how hard it was to get past our own State Department? I mean, we had the president on our side, but we had the State Department making the argument that this is too risky, that the matter of the north of Ireland is pertinent only to the United Kingdom, when all these other problems were at least being resolved. So great credit goes to all of you because you saw the hope in what might be accomplished. We're all going to take a bit of a victory lap, but as I said, Michelle O'Neill is prescient. He said, I hope that we spend our time in Belfast talking about what the next 25 years are going to look like. Yep. this is not like Congressman. They get right at it.
I think we should invite
Yeah, please. Anybody?
whoever just wants to dive in. Deirdre, come on, ask me. All right. Just incidentally, the first word spoken to me in John Boyle O'Reilly Hall in Springfield, Massachusetts, were an Irish people. Head me La Falcha Road, Dirt, Shanar, a man who had come from the Blasket Islands up the west coast of Kerry to live in that district, and that was the first words that were spoken to me. But anyway, I just think we should get down to it. Just go ahead.
Start speaking about American labor, or do you want me to just talk about? I'm very grateful to be here. I want to thank Gerry and Congressman Neal. I just think this was a wonderful event. I remember where I was when I heard that the Good Friday Agreement had been reached. Was in my grandmother's kitchen, and I remember talking to her, and she, who had come here, she had left home in 1918, and she never thought the day would come that there would be peace. And to know that 25 years it's still holding is amazing. And kudos to everyone involved.
Can everybody hear me? So I also want to echo the same words. You know, the more I learn about the Good Friday Agreement and the people who were involved in it, I'm very humbled to be in their company. And there are many of them. I'm currently the president of the Brehon Law Society of Nassau County, and we're a group of Irish in the legal profession. And you wonder what you can actually accomplish when people want to accomplish something. And I think what I've learned throughout tonight and through the history is that people wanted to find peace. And unless both sides want to find peace, then there will be no peace. And I think the next step really is, how do we get from peace to reunification? And I think that's really what our focus is going to be on in the future.
Well, there is I thought Gerry summed it up pretty well in his excellent remarks and his speech when he said that we acknowledge the principle of consent that is baked into the Good Friday Agreement. But I think that it's also an acknowledgement that, as Gerry noted and John Hume used to reinforce, that we cannot bomb the Unionists into a united Ireland, and we can't scare them into a united Ireland. And Gerry used the term tonight, persuade them about going to a united Ireland. And I think that's the next quest.
Chairman, I might offer a few thoughts on behalf of the Friends of Sinn Féin. And, you know, tonight's an opportunity for me to think about the bonds between the United States and Ireland. And a couple of things you mentioned, bipartisanship and looking to the future. I mean, that really is kind of the bedrock of what we're all about. These last 25 years, we've spent a lot of time. Sinn Féin leaders have come to the United States. They've gone not just to New York and Washington, but Gerry and Martin McGuinness and Jerry Kelly. They came to Cincinnati in Northern Kentucky no fewer than 7 times beginning in 2000. And why that's so important, it's important obviously to get out there and listen to people and get their perspective. But it's also important to build relationships and indeed friendships, so that when it comes time to answer the call on Brexit or, you know, the withdrawal agreement, the protocol, whatever it might be, you have that well of friendship and relationships that you can draw on. And we spent a lot of time building up a communications infrastructure whereby we can communicate directly with people in the United States and not have to be filtered through the Irish government or media through the British government. And we've heard her name a lot tonight. Rita O'Hara for 20 years was key to that effort. And she has left us a legacy that we cherish and we honor. Kieran Quinn is now the North American representative, and we take it as our responsibility to carry on in her footsteps to make sure that we are communicating bluntly, honestly, as you said, You know, you always knew where she stood.
Yeah.
And she always communicated honestly, sometimes brutally honestly, and sometimes even profanely honestly. But that's why we loved her. And then finally, the bipartisan piece, you know, is we represent and amplify Sinn Féin's message of peace, justice, and unity in Ireland. We're very careful to make sure we do that in a bipartisan way. We take your example with the Friends of Ireland Caucus very seriously. The good news is we don't really have to take sides because most right-thinking Republicans and most right-thinking Democrats agree on peace, justice, and unity in Ireland. So that's our perspective. You know, we take great pride in helping to forge that bond between the United States and Ireland. It's a
You raise a good point because we were regularly in the most grim days. We were regularly, Peter and Jim and probably 10 of us, we were invited to the British Embassy. And they were very hard nights. I mean, really, really difficult nights there. It got very stormy. I think that's a fair term. And I'd like to think that when everybody left, that opinion that we had offered had settled in. And I thought that this is one of those unique issues that was driven by Congress, because we were able time and again to push back on our own State Department, reminding everybody is what happened to me when I went to see Gerry really early on. I was greeted at the airport in Belfast. It was, you know, just before dawn. And the Consul General met me there and with his staff, and he was helping me get my bags. And he said to me, I just need to tell you, if you have any intention of meeting with Gerry Adams and or Sinn Féin, we will not be of assistance. And I remember saying to him, that's why you're appointed and I'm elected. And the idea that the State Department would say at that time that you couldn't meet the president of Sinn Féin or meet the leadership of Sinn Féin, pretty noteworthy.
Maybe Sean come in, Sean.
It's a great honor to be here tonight, and I think I remember one of the speakers spoke about how all of us up here, you know, continue for those that were before us. And I think it's very important to note that the people who came before us worked so hard, especially in this issue. You know, it's easy to talk about truth and justice right now with the Good Friday Agreement, but back in the time of the 60s and 70s, when you didn't have that, you were up against the British government. But you see, the one different thing that we had always is we had the truth on our side. And I think that's what made it so powerful, that people, all of us in here in different groups and organizations, wouldn't take what we just saw on TV, and we went over and we became the voice when we came back. In 1969, the national president of the AOH went over to see internment and couldn't believe what he saw. That started basically the modern day Christmas fund that we have, that started with funding the Green Cross and helping. And we continue to help groups to this year. I met John Kelly for many years in Derry, whose brother was killed in Bloody Sunday. And he always told me that when people would come back in 5, 10, 15 years, they said, John, your story never changes. And that's because John said, because when you tell the truth, you never have to change what's going on. So I think we, as Irish Americans, should be very proud of what we were able to accomplish, but the work is not done. The Good Friday Agreement should be fully implemented. And I know all the groups up here call for a referendum that's open, transparent, democratic, and should not be held up because one group simply wants to live in the past.
Thank you, Sean. I have very happy memory of meeting with Paul O'Dwyer way back in many moons ago. And I always thought he was a great American, but also a great Irishman. So I wonder if you want to update us on the work of the Brehons today.
Gerry, you had a Kerry man wish you Kate Miller Fudge in Springfield, so little Cork man wish you Kate Miller Fudge to New York.
Wow,
So yeah, I'm with the.
How's the hurdlers going to do this year?
I think it was good that we avoided getting walloping off Limerick. It's probably to our benefit, right? And So yeah, I'm with the Brehon Law Society in New York. And now you've thrown me off with that Cork hurling question. Okay, yes, it's a heavy burden. We're not used to this, right? Not used to this. But you know, the issue for us right now with the Brehon Law Society, and you're talking about the past and looking forward, is a legacy issue. And I know you alluded to a while ago, Gerry, there. And I know most of you might know what's happening with this, but to put a little synopsis of it, we've had various investigations over the course of the last few years in Northern Ireland. And the British government right now has legislation going through. It's gone through the House of Commons. It's in the House of Lords right now to be sent back to the House of Commons, subject to a few amendments. And the idea is to shut down all investigations that are, even ones that are open now and that are due to be, well, that have been asked for in that time frame of the Troubles. And it's not just shutting down criminal investigations, but actually shut down civil investigations and civil lawsuits. So it's a pretty oppressive thing. The Brehons met with Lord Kane on behalf of the British government. He was on behalf of the British government, not us. And he's the person steering it through the House of Lords. And it looks like, to us at least, it's a done deal that this legacy is going to go through and become legislation sometime this year. Now, how long will it last? It'll most certainly be subject to Article 2 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Whether it'll pass muster, that is very unlikely, I think, to anybody with a look at this. But what's significant about this is one of the few things that every single party, not just in Northern Ireland, but in the island of Ireland, is opposed to. The Labour Party in Britain's opposed to it, and human rights groups have spoken out against it. The only interest group in favour of it is veterans groups on behalf of the British Army, which will tell you enough there. And it's the Tories fulfilling a promise made their last manifesto to these people. Now, if you've followed these things over the last couple of years, you'll see all these investigations make very uncomfortable reading for the British government. If you call the Troubles for 30 years, the majority of that time it was the Tory government in power as well. So it might, you can read between the lines on what that may mean too. And as I was looking over this, I noticed that I think they just ordered about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the British government an investigation into an OMA investigation, which falls outside those 30-year time frame. So what's good for one crowd in Northern Ireland is not good for one specific incident that happened at Omagh, a horrific incident, we all know, but a different set of guidelines there. So the Brehon Law Society, that's something we, as much as anything else is present right now, I've been looking to focus on. And these are the things, if we're going to move forward, there's got to be a certain sense of truth and reconciliation, that people have certain rights. And this legacy legislation too, it has no reparation, no punishment, no compensation to victims. And so that's something, Gerry, I don't know if you want to speak to that for a few minutes and so on from your point of view in Sinn Féin, what that means and why it's of such importance for Irish America maybe to speak up about this.
Well, I want to commend the work you're doing. In fact, the work that all of you are doing, and we come to the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to make a confession. I have a rocking chair at home, which was sent to me by the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick.
Which chapter?
But if you maybe could give your little contribution, and then we'll come back and deal with all the rest. But everybody on the panel will have spoken, isn't that right, Richard? Yeah. Oh, come and ask us, sorry.
I think we hit it today was relationships. We have to build relationships. We are more similar than we are different. And when you get to know people, everyone has hope for their future. And going over to Ireland a few times and meeting the people and starting personal relationships, I know that they're very hopeful for their peace. Being an organization of women were one of the first people that crossed from Catholic to Protestants to try to work together for the betterment of their children. I just finished reading the book, Making Peace, of George Mitchell. And he said when he left there, what really touched him was 2 women coming up to him and saying, "Thank you. You gave us hope for the future. Our children and our grandchildren will be living in peace." And if you look back at our own Paul VI. He said, if you want peace, you have to work for justice. So as Irish American groups, we have to make sure that the people in North that have suffered so much injustice, that they are treated equally and they get the truth behind whatever happened. Because to move forward, you have to confront and have justice issues be dealt with. And then that hope can continue so that in the next 25 years, we will continue and this generation's grandchildren will grow up in peace.
Yes, this is Bill McDermott and from the Society of the Friendly Sons of Long Island chapter. It's a pleasure for me to be here tonight. And I also want to thank Marty Glennon for inviting me and to hosting this. This is a fantastic event for our society, this group. So thank you. I have a couple of thoughts, and it's probably outside the box. I'm what I think what Mr. Adams referred to as second, third, fourth, or longer generation that we've been here, and maybe out of connection and things like that. So I go back to college. I grew up in Queens County, or to my Irish friends, County Queens. But I met a gentleman there named Marty McNulty, and Marty was starting a Irish society at Queens College. So I was a freshman. I got to know some people, and I said I joined it. And then he would always try to get involved in promoting Irish culture, having both musicians and dancers and even poets and things of that nature, as well as mix in situations and issues affecting Ireland, in particular Northern Ireland, and this is back in 1978, 1979. And why I thought that was a little bit important is because he brought to my attention things I did not know, especially being here so long. But he focused on, it's really in essence, education of those who don't know. And education is knowledge, and knowledge is power. And his philosophy was more that if we direct enough people, people can cause change. And this was back in 1978, 79. And soon thereafter, I remember the Congressman mentioned it about the hunger strike. The hunger strike, to us who did not know, was memorable. It was life-changing. It really was. And it affected us so deeply here because it drew our attention to what was happening so far away. And it affected us that we continue to get involved and stayed involved. I'm 62 years old and still involved in this situation. It all started with the hunger strike. And someone asked earlier, oh, what about the Good Friday Agreement? And so what does it mean to you? That brought me back to the hunger strike, because it was at that, it said, wow, finally some positivity and something, maybe there is an end to this. Maybe we can bring it forward. And that has always stayed with us. Taking that information and about bringing it forward to our society, one would ask, well, how can we continue to do that? For us, it's staying involved with the programs that are offered for the local colleges and promoting those ideas, and having those people like me who didn't know a thing, maybe get involved and stay involved. And maybe you'll stay involved till you're 62 as well. So with the Malloy College and Queens College, Fordham, Hofstra of the Brehon Society, I learned that Hofstra is starting a Irish society in the law school, right? So all of these is making sure that, because people can cause change. And by doing so, get together and have these, and I'm sure there's a few people like me out there, you know, that don't have maybe a direct connection, but care about our families and the people that are affected over there, because it's just what's right.
I was making some quick notes as you were speaking about some of these issues, and reminded that, you know, Congress took up the Guilford case, Congress took up the Birmingham case, the Gibraltar case, and took up Bloody Sunday and the Finucane case. And Gerry Adams called me and asked me to review the McCord case. When I told Raymond McCord, from a loyalist background, that Gerry Adams had said, take a look at that case. And to this day, his son's death has not been answered. Bloody Sunday, when we talked to those families on that day, when Prime Minister Cameron, to his credit, took the high road and acknowledged what had happened, this is about reconciliation. So Raymond McCord wants to know what happened to his son, but so do these other families. They want to know what happened to their children. So I think that that legacy commission, it's been ill-considered.
To deal directly with what you said earlier, in the Stormont House Agreement, there was a process agreed, which was victim-centered, and which was about truth recovery and so on. And all the parties signed up for that, including the two governments. And the only party that's in breach of it now is the British government that just torn it up. So it is important to work with what the Brehons are doing. And, you know, I don't think we need to go beyond the advertisement which is put into the newspapers recently there. Because what you were basically asking for was the full implementation of the Good Friday Agreement. So, you know, maybe people don't want to see an Irish Republic, or maybe people, you know, have some other misgiving about some other aspect. But there can be no doubt that the people of Ireland, North and South, voted for the Good Friday Agreement. So to call upon your public representatives here to use their influence with the British government, which is in breach of the Good Friday Agreement. And then secondly, and I quite deliberately in my remarks tonight went back to this whole process of the Sinn Féin peace strategy. And what first of all was John Hewlin, myself, and then the Irish government, but basically it was to have a self-determination, but a mechanism by which we can exercise it. Now we now have that. The British don't want to concede it. The Unionists don't want it to be done. The Irish government, shame on them, don't want it to be done either. So that advertisement was on almost every newspaper in Ireland and was on all the main television newses in Ireland. So it becomes a talking point. And I mean, Richie Neal, and he would be the first to say he's part of a team of people and of a, you know, people, some of them have retired now, some of them unfortunately have died, who on Capitol Hill have kept fighting all these good causes. But again, I think he would maybe the first to say to you that you need to use your influence on your Congress members to let them know that these are important issues. And that's why a panel discussion like tonight shouldn't just be a panel discussion. Everybody here should try to do something about whatever you think is the appropriate issue. You know, we nearly had 6 different issues raised here by the 6 different representatives. So there's or the 7. So there's you know, some issue that takes your fancy, or that you have an expertise on, or that motivates you, and let your public representatives here know that you want to see with 25 years, that's done. It's the next 25 years. And we actually do have the ability to bring about Irish unity and to reconcile ourselves with the Unionists. And your influence, I think, has just been critical to get where we are at the moment, and will be critical to get beyond where we are in the time ahead.
We know we're coming to a conclusion here, and I think we will have reached one of our most important goals when someday, rather than talking about the 2 communities in the North, we'll talk about 2 traditions that live in one community. Yeah. So this is an honor for me, for somebody who's been a friend of mine for a long, long time. And this is a flag that was flown over the Capitol of the United States, which is a big deal, so that I might present it to a great friend to America, Gerry Adams.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Richie, and thank you, everyone. Cormagov.
Okay. So before we leave, in 2016, Billy and Jacinta were here and they're up on stage and I said, why don't we close with a song that I think everybody will appreciate? I asked them to do it again this evening. So if you stay, and right after this is completed, I ask all the volunteers to come up on stage. Thank you again, everybody. And let's not do this in 5 years. Let's work towards that United Ireland. Thank you all very much.
When boyhood's fire was in my blood, I dreamt of ancient freemen. For Greece and Rome bravely stood 300 men and 3 men. And yet I prayed I might see our fetters rent in twain. And Ireland on the province be a nation once again. A nation once again. A nation once again. And Ireland long the province be a nation once again. And from that time that wine was full, that hope had shone up our light, nor could love's brightest summer glow outshine that solemn starlight. It seemed to watch above my head in forum, field, and bed. Its angels' voice rang round my head, a nation once again, a nation once again, a nation once again. And Ireland long the province be a nation once again. And it whispered to the freedom's heart that service high and lowly would be profaned by feeling dark with passions vain and lowly. For freedom comes from God's right hand and needs a godly tread. And righteousness make my land a nation once again. Everybody join us. A nation once again. A nation once again. And Ireland long the province be a nation once again. Margaret.